The city lights flickered like distant stars against the velvet night, casting long shadows over the rain-slicked streets of New York. Alexander Kane trudged through the downpour, his trench coat heavy with water, his mind heavier still with the weight of another failed day. At 35, he was a ghost of the man he once dreamed of being, a corporate shark who had clawed his way to the top of a soulless advertising firm, only to find the view from the summit was as empty as his penthouse apartment. Relationships? Fleeting. Friends? Superficial. Family? Long estranged after his parents' bitter divorce when he was just a boy. Alex had built walls so high that even he couldn't scale them anymore. Love was a myth, a marketing ploy he sold to the masses but never bought himself. That night, as he ducked into a dimly lit cafe copyright to escape the storm, everything changed. The bell above the door tinkled softly, announcing his arrival to the handful of patrons nursing their coffees. He shook off the rain and headed to the counter, ordering his usual black coffee and no sugar, no cream, just bitter like his outlook. As he waited, his eyes wandered to the corner booth where a young woman sat alone, her fingers tracing patterns on the fogged window. She couldn't have been more than 25, with raven hair cascading in wild waves down her back, and eyes the color of emeralds caught in sunlight. She wore a simple red dress that seemed out of place in the dreary weather, as if she carried her own summer with her. Something about her pulled at him, an invisible thread tugging at the frayed edges of his solitude. He told himself it was nothing, just fatigue playing tricks, but when their eyes met across the room, time stuttered. She smiled a small, knowing curve of her lips that lit up the cafe copyright like a beacon. Before he knew it, he was walking over, coffee forgotten. "Mind if I join you?" he asked, his voice rougher than intended. "The storm's got me trapped." She looked up, her gaze piercing yet warm. Trapped? Or seeking refuge? Her voice was melodic, laced with an accent he couldn't place, perhaps Eastern European, or something more exotic. He slid into the booth opposite her, feeling oddly exposed. "Both, I suppose. I'm Alex." "Leela," she replied, extending a hand. Her touch was electric, sending a jolt through him that he hadn't felt in years. They talked for hours as the rain pounded relentlessly outside. Leela was a wanderer, she said, a photographer chasing stories in forgotten corners of the world. She spoke of sunsets in Marrakech, whispers of ancient ruins in Athens, and the quiet magic of Parisian alleys at dawn. Alex, who had traveled only for business deals, found himself mesmerized. She didn't pry into his life. Instead, she drew him out with questions that peeled away his defenses layer by layer. By the time the cafe copyright closed, he realized he had shared more with this stranger than with anyone in a decade. His childhood scars, his empty ambitions, the void that gnawed at him. "Walk with me?" she asked as they stepped into the cooling night. The rain had eased to a mist, and the streets gleamed under street lamps. He nodded, and they strolled aimlessly, the city unfolding like a dream. Leela pointed out hidden murals on alley walls, laughed at the absurdity of neon signs, and shared snippets of her life that painted her as both fragile and fierce. She had lost her family young, she confided, in a tragedy she didn't elaborate on, and had been rebuilding herself ever since. "We all have worlds inside us," she said softly, "some broken, some beautiful. The trick is finding someone to help map them." Alex felt a crack in his armor. For the first time, he wondered if his world could be more than transactions and triumphs. Days turned into weeks, and Leela became the axis around which his life spun. They met in parks, museums, hole-in-the-wall eateries where she introduced him to flavors he'd never tasted, a spicy tagines, delicate crepes, stories wrapped in every bite. She challenged him. "Why do you sell dreams you don't believe in?" she'd ask, her eyes sparkling with mischief. Under her influence, Alex began to question his path. He skipped meetings to capture sunrises with her camera in hand, laughed until his sides ached at her impersonations of pompous clients, and felt emotions he'd long suppressed bubbling to the surface. One evening, atop the Brooklyn Bridge as the sun dipped below the skyline, Leela turned to him, her face flushed with the golden light. "Alex, you've changed me too," she whispered. "I was running from my past, but with you, I want to stay." He pulled her close, their lips meeting in a kiss that tasted of promise and possibility. In that moment, his world shifted, a colors brighter, sounds sharper, heart fuller. Leela was the girl who changed everything. But shadows lurked beneath the surface. Leela was evasive about her past, changing the subject when pressed, her phone buzzing with calls she ignored. Alex dismissed it at first, lost in the euphoria of newfound love. Yet, doubts crept in like fog. Who was she really? Why did she carry a worn locket she never opened, or wake from nightmares murmuring names he didn't recognize? The turning point came on a crisp autumn night. They were in his apartment, tangled in sheets after a passionate evening, when her phone rang insistently. She answered this time, her face paling as she listened. "I can't," she hissed into the receiver. "Not anymore." Hanging up, she turned to him, tears glistening. "Alex, there's something I need to tell you." Her story poured out like a dam breaking. Leela wasn't just a photographer, she was Elena Petrova, daughter of a notorious Russian oligarch who had fled after witnessing her father's corruption lead to her mother's murder. She had been in hiding for years, assuming new identities to evade his reach. "He found me once before," she sobbed. "I thought New York was safe, but he's closing in. If I stay, he'll destroy you too." Alex's world cracked. Anger, fear, love warred within him. "We can fight this," he insisted, pulling her into his arms. "I'll protect you." But Leela shook her head. "You don't understand. He's powerful, connections everywhere. I have to go." Desperation fueled him. For the first time, Alex used his corporate savvy for something personal. He contacted old acquaintances, hired private investigators, even reached out to his estranged father, a retired lawyer, to build a case against the oligarch. Nights blurred into strategy sessions, Leela's fear a constant companion. She taught him resilience, sharing tales of her escapes, while he showed her trust, vowing never to let her face it alone. Their bond deepened amid the chaos. Stolen moments of tenderness, a dancing in the kitchen to old jazz records, whispering dreams under starless skies became lifelines. Leela opened her locket one night, revealing a faded photo of her mother. "She believed in love's power," she said. "Now, so do I." Yet, the noose tightened. Threatening messages arrived. Shadows followed them on streets. Alex's job suffered. He was demoted for absenteeism, but he didn't care. His old life felt like a distant memory, replaced by this fierce protectiveness. The climax erupted on a stormy evening, much like their first meeting. They were at a safe house Alex had arranged upstate when armed men burst in, hired guns sent by her father. Chaos ensued, gunshots echoed, furniture splintered. Alex fought like a man possessed, shielding Leela as they fled into the woods. Rain lashed at them, thunder roaring approval. In the melee, Leela was heat to a graze to her arm, but enough to slow her. "Leave me!" she cried. "Never," Alex growled, carrying her through the underbrush. They reached a highway, flagging down a trucker who rushed them to safety. In the hospital, as doctors bandaged her, Alex confronted the truth. Loving her meant risking everything. But in her eyes, he saw his reflection, and not the hollow man he was, but someone worthy, changed. Her father was arrested days later. Thanks to evidence Alex's team uncovered, a corruption tapes Leela had smuggled out years ago, now amplified by international pressure. Freedom dawned. Years passed. Alex left his firm, starting a non-profit aiding whistleblowers, inspired by Leela's courage. They married in a quiet ceremony overlooking the sea, her locket now holding their photo. Leela, the girl who changed his world, had rebuilt it stronger, brighter. And in her arms, Alex found not just love, but purposely a testament that one person can indeed alter destinies forever.